The meeting of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr. Director Garcia. Director Gokul Gandhi.
I'm here.
Director Leonard.
Present.
And Chair Seamson.
Present.
We have 3 committee members present. We have a quorum.
Yeah, go ahead.
Director, I believe there was a reassignment. Director Garcia is not on this committee anymore, and I am, I believe.
That's correct.
But if I can go home, I will.
No, no, you can't.
Just kidding. I'm so excited.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum of the committee.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Darn, you have to stay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
enthused. I'm prepared with comments.
The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, fill out a speaker's slip and bring it to our board clerk, Dr. Mann. Virtual speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you are called upon to speak. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the Chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Once virtual speakers have given their testimony, they may follow the meeting on any of the broadcast options mentioned previously. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201-2181. Yep, I'm on. Or fax to 414-475-8071. Or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. As a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, committee members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such behavior will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting before the meeting resumes. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, he or she will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page of the MPS website. Now, let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
as
ma'am.
Director O'Halloran was stating, Director O'Halloran is a member of this committee, and I apologize. We will make that correction. There were a few changes to the committee structures over the last
No worries,
week.
we are creatures of habit.
Yes, and so Director Garcia, just to correct the record for the attendance, Director Garcia is not on this meeting and not expected to be here tonight. Okay, so you
For
do
that
have 4
clarification.
members of the committee who are members of the committee present.
And they all have to stay.
Thank you. Okay, great. Item number 1 is action on the approval of the Head Start Cost of Living Adjustment, the COLA application, and quality improvement funding, the QI application for FY '23. The administration recommends that the board approve the application as submitted in the attachment to this item.
Would the administration please present this item?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the committee, Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. We're asking for your approval of the Head Start's federal cost for living adjustment, better known as COLA, for the Quality Improvement Funding application. I'm going to ask Ms. Chrissy Washington, the Manager of Early Childhood Learning, to provide some additional information on this item, and after which we'd be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Ms. Washington.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and other members of the committee. I am Chrissy Washington, the Early Learning Manager, and I am here to provide information regarding the request for approval of the Head Start Cost of Living Adjustment COLA application and Quality Improvement Funding application. The Milwaukee Public Schools Head Start program is eligible to apply for a supplemental cost of living grant and quality improvement funding through the Administration for Children and Families Office of Head Start. The allocation that Milwaukee Public Schools Head Start is eligible to apply for is a total of $1,071,849. Milwaukee Public Schools Head Start is seeking the maximum of $645,620 in cost of living adjustment funding. This funding will be used for permanent base building salary increases awarded to all Head Start staff leading into the 2023-24 school year. The cost of living adjustment is at a rate of 5.6%. It is to be used to assist all Head Start grantees in increasing staff salaries and fringe benefits or in offsetting operational costs. Whereas the remaining $426,229 are the quality improvement funds, which are targeted for either updating and or replacing 5 Head Start site playgrounds and tot lots. A recent visit from the Office of Head Start indicated that the playground structure that Head Start students utilize are either too tall and not age appropriate for 3- and 4-year-old children. Replacing and updating to age-appropriate play spaces aids in a child's physical health development and provides opportunity for students to develop socially and emotionally. Playing together with their peers allows students to learn important social skills like empathy and cooperation, as well as improve critical thinking capabilities, which could help them to succeed later in life. Overall, the improved outdoor spaces ensure health and safety is maintained with the provision of age-appropriate updated equipment, which is of utmost priority. Upon board approval, Milwaukee Head Start Office will submit the federal and county Head Start COLA, cost of living adjustment, and quality improvement funding application. At this time, I'd be more than happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard.
So I read this over. First question I have is, it looks like it's been recommended that we not only give them the COLA, but also, and to make up the difference between the federal and, if I understand it correctly, we're making up the difference between what the federal pays, the 5 point some %, and we're making up that difference, if I read that correctly. But I'm also asking, are we increasing their hours as recommended so that they are working, I don't know, I read it, they want to increase their hours as well, so that they'd be more directly involved with our students and families that are in Head Start. I know you're looking at me like I'm telling you something new, so I'm not sure.
Administration?
Chair Simpson, Director Leonard, and other members of the committee. In regards to your first question, the 5.6% rate is to increase staff salaries and fringe benefits as well as offset operational costs. So it is directly towards the employees' pay. In regards to your second question pertaining to hours, that was a request based upon approval of the application for the program, 5-year application, renewal application that was submitted. So that is not part of this quality improvement and cost of living adjustment application.
Okay, thank you. I have more. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right.
Director Leonard, take it away.
You got it. And this is not part of this application, but I do have to bring this up. I've had several calls today. We are opening up to 7 new positions, from what I've read. Is that correct?
Administration?
Chair Simpson, Director Leonard, and other members of the committee, yes, that is correct. There is open positions pertaining to the 7 program support teachers as well as the 7 additional paraprofessional support positions.
Director Leonard?
Okay, thank you. And then the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've had several calls saying that we were in the second cycle and people that have applied for those positions are wondering when those interviews are going to be taking place. And I said I would ask it.
Administration?
Chair Simpson, Director Leonard, and other members of the committee, we are in the process of establishing an interview schedule, but I will say we are also continually to receive applications. So once we receive all of them, we will proceed to conduct interviews.
Thank you. I'm good.
That's it? All right, thank you very much. Any other members of the committee? Madam Secretary, do any members of the public wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Thank you so much. I just want to comment on the tot lots and playgrounds. I mean, I'm really glad to see that some of the funding is going to go towards that. It was a much-needed improvement, and I'm glad we have this opportunity to do that. So I'm glad that that was part of this funding source. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Gokul Gandhi.
I move we approve the Head Start cost of living adjustment application and quality improvement funding based on administration's recommendations.
Wonderful. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On Director Gokul Gandhi's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the COLA adjustment and the quality improvement FY23 Head Start application. On the motion as read, Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Chair Simpson.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 2, which is an update with possible action on Resolution 2223R-14 on the Early Years Success Center. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, at the March 23rd board meeting, Resolution 2223R-014 regarding an Early Years Success Center was adopted. It was determined that the administration report to the SASE committee in May of 2023 on the progress and the development of the Early Years Success Center. This evening, I have with me Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services, to share this update. Following this update, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Ms. Schock?
Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. This evening, we are providing an update to the Early Years Success Center from Resolution 2223R-014. Attached to this item is the report that provides the timeline, description of programming, steps for implementation, and the proposed budget. The Success Center is co-led by Drew DeLudio and Willie Maryland and currently serves students in grades 4 through 12. The Success Center supports the social, emotional, mental, and physical health so each student can thrive, live an authentic life, and reach their fullest potential. The work of the Success Center cannot go unrecognized without acknowledging our partners, Marquette Center for Peacemaking, Lutheran Social Services, Bloom Center for Arts and Integrated Therapies, Inner Light Yoga Studio, and our MPS staff. We'd also like to acknowledge the collaboration with the school teams, which has been a central part of this program. In January, the Success Center will add grade 3 and will begin to accept referrals in fall. The addition of this grade level does not impact the current staffing or funding for the program. However, for the 24-25 school year, the addition of grades 1 and 2, and then the following year, grades K4 and K5, will impact funding and staffing. In order to best serve the younger children, more research will be required to ensure developmentally appropriate supports are in place. The team has identified a need for a full-time teacher to serve in multiple capacities in this program. This person will be critical to the referral process by developing the relationship with the students and staff at the school prior to attending the Success Center. This will help guide the appropriate therapeutic supports that the child might need at the center to address behavioral concerns. This role will help facilitate the academic supports for the students, specifically around any interventions that are needed. The Success Center is a 12-week program. The first 9 weeks, the students are at the center receiving the therapeutic supports, followed by 3 weeks of transition supports at their school. This work does not end after the 12-week cycle, as each student that attends the Success Center may continue to receive ongoing supports, including therapy, that is specific to the needs of the student. The team recognizes that that transitions are critical in this program, and an addition of a transition coach would allow for more support at the schools. Currently, students receive talk therapy, Peaceworks curriculum, art therapy, mindful living, and academic support. The third grade students will receive similar programming as these students. In the initial planning phase, the team recognizes that younger students in grades K4 through 2 will benefit from early childhood therapy, which includes play therapy to meet their developmentally appropriate needs. Families are at the heart of this work, and all families have access to a family therapist and a family advocate. For our younger students, we believe that this will be an important component of the child's progress, and this will be included as part of the student day. The Success Center team will work with the families to find an agreeable time to meet and discuss the child's progress and provide strategies to help their child at home to reinforce appropriate behavior. The proposed budget is provided in the attachment. At this time, we can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard?
I got the grade levels for capacity. What is our estimated student capacity for the program initially?
Administration?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Contracted School Services. So the goal is to really keep the cohorts at a small size so that they can provide that support specifically around transition, given that their capacity. So each cohort typically runs between 15 to 20 students.
Thank you.
Director Leonard?
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director O'Halloran?
Thank you. I just want to be clear. I think I heard that for this upcoming year, you don't anticipate any increase needed for the budget, but then the subsequent years, there would be an increase. Did I understand that correctly?
Administration?
Yeah, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Contracted School Services, that is correct.
Okay.
Director O'Halloran?
No follow-up. I just wanted to make sure that if there were things that were needed, that it would be baked into the budget we're currently considering, but it sounds like that's next year's conversation.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do any members of the public wish to make comments?
For public testimony on this item.
Okay, thank you. We do have one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was for item 3.
We do have one. Nicolo Honorado.
I'm a special education teacher. I think the Success Center, hello. I think the Success Center idea is fantastic. I was recently in a school that has a student who is, I believe, in 4th grade, who is currently in the Success Center. I was speaking to their teachers about the concern about re-entry into the school from the Success Center, because sometimes when kids are going to the Success Center, might have burned a couple bridges. My concern, and I would like to know more about the plans and the district is going to be taking to make sure that students who are coming out of the successful program have a good reentry and are either welcome back into their school, or there is a consideration of a new placement possible for that student. Thank you.
Thank you. So that actually ties into a question that I had, so I'm going to ask it. I was wondering if restorative practices were used as part of this reentry process, so maybe you could just expand just in general about the reentry process that we're using. Thank you.
Yes, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Shaw, Contracted School Services. Yes, restorative practices is the heart of what we do as well. So when a student, when they leave the Success Center, they have a very extensive transition plan that is provided to the school staff. So it's the school psychologist, the principal, the social worker, their teacher, and the collaboration is ongoing. So it's not just that the student's gone for 9 weeks and then they're coming back, but there's been communication that's been constant since the day that the student stepped foot in the Success Center. So that helps build those relationships right away, and it also helps build the capacity of the staff and the students when they transition back to their school. So that's why we've added the 3-week time period of really intensive, intentional supports when the student transitions back to their school so that they can have an easier transition. We use restorative practices. We provide continued art therapy, or we use like our Lutheran Social Services, who are licensed therapists, go in and provide services to them. There's just constant communication that happens between the leaders and the school throughout. I guess you could also think of it as almost like a wrap around service. So if the student is having maybe a bad day, they're on call and somebody will come and support that student as well. So there's a lot of, it just depends on the student and then transitions, but we do recognize that that is the hardest part of this program. They do really well at the Success Center, but then going back to their school sometimes can, trigger some other anxieties for them. And so we just have to figure out and work collaboratively with the school to figure out what's in their capacity, as well as what the staff at the Success Center can do as well.
Thank you so much for explaining that. Right, that's such an important part of the program, and I'm sure the most difficult, and it sounds like we have a lot of support systems in place to make that as successful as possible for the students. Is there any further discussion? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. When we talk about the reentry, I also, I'm just wondering if you can speak about the communication with families. Having a child who sometimes has been treated as a problem to be solved, I don't always love the communication I get about my kid. And so how do we anticipate working with families to help alleviate any of their anxieties, especially when there are still such strong stigma around, we're going to offer your kid therapy, and, maybe they don't want their kid to have to need therapy. So how are we going to be sensitive to the needs of families so that they're treated as a partner in this?
Administration?
Yes, Chair Simpson, members of committee, Bridget Shaw, Contracted School Services. Yes, so the families are really consider the Success Center almost as their liaison, right? So the relationships with the families are built right away. So as soon as we receive a referral, the communication is there's a call, there's a phone call, there's an opportunity for the family to come to an open house, to just kind of step foot in the center to see what the atmosphere and what the center is all about. And they can talk to other students who might already be in the center at the time. And then we also have the families, need to agree to that this is something that they want to do. That's really important, as well as the students agreeing that this is something that they're interested in doing as well. So that communication with the families is and it doesn't stop when they come to the Success Center. That continues all the time. And then when they move on, that communication with the family is almost like an advocate for that family after they leave the Success Center.
Madam
you.
Chair, members of the committee, I would say to each of you, if you have an opportunity, please go and visit the Success Center. And having a conversation with families and students when I was there, it was amazing to see the parental support and the wraparound services and the number of different activities that children go through on a daily basis. You could truly see the love and support, and it's also a clear pathway with the school community. The teacher, that child's teacher, is in the wraparound services as well, being made aware of what's happening on a daily basis of what's happening with that child. We even talked about phone calls back to the teacher and to the classroom. It was truly amazing, and to hear the stories from the parents, their testimonials was just phenomenal. So please, if you get an opportunity, go out to spend some time at the Success Center.
Thank you for sharing those experiences. Director O'Halloran, any other questions? And looking at the schedule for their day, I can see that family therapy is a piece of this program, so that's really good to hear and see. Is there any further discussion? Yep, go ahead, Director Leonard.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I was reading about it, and I felt like, well, why don't I know? I don't remember this many, many years ago. So because it's so relatively new, it's just exciting to see. And my guess is that it's going to be very effective, especially if we involve all those people. Just quickly, you also have a parent coordinator that works with them too. Is that correct?
Administration?
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Shaw, Contracted School Services. Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Anything else, Director Leonard?
That's it.
All right. See no further discussion. Thank you very much. That is really an exciting program for our district to be offering, and thank you, Director Leonard, for bringing that forward. I appreciate it. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 3, which is an update and possible action on Resolution 2122R-4 regarding middle school and high school equity. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the committee. In June of 2022, the board approved recommendations made by the Middle and High School School Equity Steering Committee in regards to Resolution 2122R-004. This evening, I have with me Dr. Melanie Stewart, Director of Student Performance, to give a report out and also give some recommendations. And following her presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. We also have Mr. Daniel Hennessy from Student Services with us this evening as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Director Simpson, members of the committee. I'm Melanie Stewart, Director of Research Assessment and Data. Tonight, we're talking about the 5 priorities of success. I went too fast. And this is a system-wide process. So this dealt with improving school and district culture, strengthening communication and collaboration, also developing our staff so that we are certain that this is an open and equitable process for our children. We're going to begin with an overview of the data that was involved in this year's process. As you can see, a big increase. 71% of our eighth graders submitted applications into the high school enrollment process. We also saw an increase of almost 1,400 applicants to MPS schools. 3,460 were accepted into one of their choices. That's an increase of over 1,000 students from the previous year. Almost 3,000 of those applicants were accepted into their first choice, which is 80% of those students. 191 did not get placed at any of their choices, and we can talk a little bit about that later. 110 were waitlisted across all of the schools that use select criteria, and we had close to 700 students that were not eligible for choice one, but were ultimately selected for one of their other choices. So this data can show you the number of applications of first choice that were submitted. Again, all schools were involved in the process, and these indicate the schools, how many students chose them as first choice, which was a very important decision. The schools that used criteria, and if you will recall, we have some schools that have been traditionally select criteria, but this year we introduced that any school that had more interest than seats available would also use the criteria. One of those is Audubon High School. And as you can see, they went and accepted only first choice students that filled their seats, and they had a cut score of 4. If you will recall, the cut score, total score, was lower this year. I believe it was 12, because we also changed the criteria to lower the impact on the essay and state assessments and to increase attendance and their grades, which they have much more control over. Golda Meir took first choice students and current students. They had a cut score of 8 and above. King IB, again, first choice, cut score of 5. McDowell Montessori was another one who had more interest in their school than there were seats, and they used first choice. They did not need to have a cut score, but accepted first choice. Milwaukee High School of the Arts was first choice only. There was not a cut score there, and auditions is required for placement in the program, not into the school, but whether I'm going into visual arts or dance, etc. Reagan High School was first choice also, and their score was 10 and above. Siblings with a score of a 9 were accepted. And at Riverside High School, they used first, second, and third choice and did not have a cut score. We have always been interested in our applicants that come from outside of the district, and here you can see the schools where we had large numbers of applicants. Of the non-MPS applicants, there were a total of 422 applicants. 280 were accepted, 24 waitlisted, and 117 not receiving their choices. Many times these students make a single choice. They don't make 5 choices. They want to come to a single school. The first choices that were chosen by these students were generally Reagan, Golda Meir, and King. We changed communications this year. This year, we also decided to current families of 7th graders who will be part of the process next year is around January. We're getting ready for state assessments. We're looking at attendance. We're looking at our grades. We have plenty of time to impact those things. We ran a web story in March. We had a family newsletter. Principals received an email on March 27th to send home to families of 7th graders. This was prior to forward testing. A message was included in Thursday updates, and there were additional social media stories. One of the reasons we did this is to make certain people are aware of the criteria now when they can impact it, not in the fall and they're looking in retrospect. We also looked at a process to address attendance score concerns. In the cases where we had concerns, we discussed the concern with the family, explain the criteria, because oftentimes that was the biggest issue, is not understanding the criteria, and that there is a difference, there is not a difference for us between unexcused and excused absence. The child's not in school, so it is an absence, and that's part of our state and federal accountability. And below 90%, those students are considered absentee. Those students did not receive a score or receive 0 points. There was also during the 21-20 school year, the students had the opportunity that if they were on quarantine, if they were out ill, to make up work, and then, for lack of better terms, their attendance was marked as present. And so we helped families understand. We had a few families that could say, I submitted work. And we worked with the school to make certain that that was counted on their records. We reviewed each student record with the family and assisted, as I said, the family with making certain that everything was updated with the correct recordings of attendance. So what were some of our successes and wins? We did a much easier application process. Students within the district just needed to say, these are the schools I would like to apply to. We believe that resulted in an increased number of applications. We increased the number of students who got into their first choice. I think having had the different events for the students allowed them to see a wider range of schools. We could count them on less than one hand, the concerns expressed about the essay this year, and we think it was because there were fewer points involved. Most of the questions we received is, my child got a 4 on the essay, why did I only get 2 points? So we had to explain the scoring. The high school admissions application report was developed in my office, and this helped us tremendously behind the scenes to monitor the accuracy and efficiency. So if a mom or dad called and said, I want to know about my child, instantaneously we could tell them about the scores, the data we had, the data we didn't have, and working with student services, this made the process very, very clean, and we could monitor ourselves. Acceptance letters were sent out earlier than expected, so that's always a good thing. So considerations for the future. What we know is first choice matters, and how can we help students and their families understand that first choice matters? Because most schools were filled based on the number of students who mark them as a first choice. If I had 300 seats available and I had more interest than that, I was generally filled with my first choice students. Students marking schools as second, third, fourth, fifth choice did not end up having access. So choosing a good choice for you and your family as first choice is paramount. Some parents didn't understand the scoring, as I mentioned, and so we worked a lot with that to explain and take them to the website where it has been posted. Parents did not understand that excused and unexcused count the same on absences. Some additional considerations for the future is that to support current high school students in understanding they do not need to use the process if they're already in high school. We had a lot of students that did that as they were trying to transfer to schools, and that's done in a much simpler and different method. We had some rejected applications due to missing information. What I will share with you is that Student Services goes above and beyond in, if there are missing things, calling every single family, not once, multiple times, to make certain families are getting that information in. We had a lot of duplicate applications that I applied and then decided to change my choices. All you would have needed to do is to call in and change your choices. And so we had some students that had 2, 3, or more applications, and you just had to watch how they changed their choices. Families are not having students participate in the auditions at Milwaukee High School of the Arts. We are working with the school, and that's part of requirement for the placement in their program, not to the school. What we also learned is that some students aren't certain what that means or how to go about it. So we've been working with the school to come up with ideas of how to do that during freshman bridge. They have other opportunities this spring. They're reaching out to schools and to families. And so we've learned a lot about the families, the students in that process, and we're looking how can we improve that to make it more user-friendly for our children. Additional actions for next school year is to increase our communication to schools and families to explain the 5-choice process, increase communication to families, now 6th and 7th graders, and possibly provide criteria scores to students and families in the attendance, report cards, and state testing prior to the application time so they can make a better first choice. And perhaps give an average cut score, what the cut score has been in the past, et cetera. So that's something that we're trying to figure out how to do, knowing that you'll have one more score in there added in. But we have this data collected in August, so we would be able to do that for families. So that's our presentation. We are excited about the progress we made, and we'd be delighted to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mel. If it's okay with committee members, we'd like to go to public speaking slips, if that's all right. All right, Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who would like to make comments on this item?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have both virtual and in-person testimony on this item. Would you like to go to the virtual testimony first?
Yes, please.
The Jim Nilsson, please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony. Madam Chair, we can check back on the virtual platform.
Yes,
once
please
we
let
have
us know
completed
if we're able to reach.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Okay. There must have been some kind of a lag. I think I have bad Wi-Fi. Yeah, my name is Jim Nelson, N-E-L-S-E-N. And I'd like to thank Dr. Stewart for that excellent presentation. I've been in a high school teacher for 25 years. I think this year went smoother than ever when it came to high school admissions. I'm very encouraged by the excellent growth in the number of kids who are applying for high schools and with the number of students who have received their first choice. My only real concern is about that 191 kids who didn't get into any of the schools that they chose. And I think there's some simple things that can be done. I definitely agree with Dr. Stewart's point on educating families about like how many points they have going into this process. I think we could very easily provide these families with last year's test scores at the beginning of the 8th grade so they make a good choice. I would also encourage the district to actually start telling families at the end of 6th grade that it's the 7th grade year that counts for 10 out of those 12 points, with additional reminders then in the 7th grade. I think that would be a really good idea. I would encourage schools who participate in the process to choose also their first and second choice, because I am very concerned that those 191 students may leave the district. And a final idea would be, I really think we need to put a lot more money into the counseling end and helping families choose wisely. I hear reports from all over the city of kids at all levels, elementary school, middle school, and high school, who are in programs that they really know nothing about, that are not good fits for their learning style and where they want to go in life. So hopefully we can improve the education piece as well. But on the whole, lots of really good progress, and looking forward to continued progress as we go.
Thank you. We will move to the in-person speaker slips, and we will begin with Ingrid Henry Walker.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Good evening. My name is Ingrid Walker Henry, WALKER-HENRY.
Thank you.
MTEA Vice President. As part of the middle and high school equity work, administration asked MTEA members to participate in the equity group to improve the high school selection process. Important improvements and changes were suggested and enacted by MPS administration, but MTEA knows there's more work to do and wants to discuss the following with MPS administration. That would be the publishing of the previous year's cut scores to inform and support families in making their choices. It would also be working on beginning the process with families and students in the 6th grade regarding the point system and providing all other pertinent MPS high school enrollment information, the steps to follow. And what could be thought about is maybe a possible scorecard to help families plan that out a little bit better. I also want to point out that this is only a small portion of what MTEA members view as equity for our students and families. In the spring of 2021, MTEA members proposed that MPS administration review and revise high school mathematics opportunities, stop the practice of denying high school students the opportunities to choose electives, make ethnic studies an accredited course, and to provide the funding for extracurricular activities that allow for all middle and high schools to close the opportunity gaps that exist within the district. There is progress in these areas, and MTEA looks forward to future collaboration to continue that progress. Every middle and high school in the district must provide full courses and elective offerings that make MPS middle and high schools the gem of their neighborhoods. MTEA is asking for continued discussions with MPS administration to achieve greater equity for students and families in the enrollment process, as well as to eliminate the opportunity gaps. This evening, I have copies of MTEA's 2021 proposals, which I will hand to the board clerk just for a review of where we were and how far we've come. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jessie Bowling.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony when you're ready, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jesse Bowling. Last name is Bolling.
Thank you.
And I'm here tonight because I wanted to make sure that the parent concerns that we received at King High School were heard. The 5 example letters that I have printed for you are meant to illustrate the confusing nature of this process for families involved. Just by looking at the letters, you can see some of the confusion the parents and families went through trying to figure out why they were denied entrance to schools in their choice list. Using the example of letter 1, you can see the student scored a 7, which did not get him into their first choice, Reagan, whose cut score was a 10, or Golda, whose cut score was an 8. But it was enough to get into their third choice, Rufus King, whose cut score was a 4. However, they were denied. And they were also denied their 4th selection, Riverside. Example of letter 2 is a little bit more perplexing if you're a parent. The student and family were only interested in choosing Reagan or King, and they listed no other school on their choice list. And while the student received a 7, it was not high enough for admission to Reagan. It was, again, high enough to get into King, but they were denied. As you can see from these examples, just those 2, there's 3 more in there, that you can see it's a little bit confusing for the parents who were a part of this. And I think the overriding issue is that MPS asked schools to only take their first choice students. It's kind of inferred that schools chose to accept their first choice students, but that's not true. During the meetings with schools, it was recommended by representatives that they would like for schools to take their first choice students only. So the question is, especially at Rufus King, why were the schools limited to taking only students who chose them as their first choice? And more importantly, why was this never communicated to parents? And why weren't students and families who say scored an 8 at King and who scored an 8 and had King selected as their number 2 choice not allowed to choose King as their school? It just doesn't seem that MPS is really using the cut score to determine, and it's been referenced before multiple times, is that we want to educate kids on choosing a school that they might get into based on a score. So you're kind of like making a kid predict what they may be getting instead of just letting them let the chips fall where they may and they be able to take the choices that are in front of them. But effectively right now, unfortunately, there is no choice. Either you get into your first school or you don't. And to get into maybe your other schools, there's a very long process. I think they had 695 students and families who had to go through that process. And trust me, I have these 5, but I have emails from other people who have reached out to people at Rufus King. And I just want to let you all know that there are concerns about the communication and the process for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Nicolo Honorado.
Nicolo Honorato, O-N-O-R-A-T-O, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. I'm a high school special education teacher and a parent of incoming 7th graders. I have a daughter who went through the high school selection process. There have been some positive changes in the system that has seen enrollment in many of our outstanding high schools across the district. There are such great things happening at all of our schools: the nursing track at JMAC, the agriculture at Vincent, the welding programs at Bradley Tech, and art and music across the district. We continue to make strides to make sure that every school is a jewel in their neighborhood. But the district must continue to expand the opportunities for students in all of these schools, to hire instructors who are experts in their field, and to allow all students the opportunity to find something that they love in their education. There can be truly something for every child in MPS. The cut score system has helped parents and families understand the process applying to high school. While information is available and criteria posted, I feel that as a parent of 2 6th graders, more needs to be done to ensure that parents and students are informed about the process and the importance of students' performance, especially in their 7th grade year, where their attendance, grades, and participation most directly impact their high school enrollment. Additionally, it would be helpful for 6th grade families to know what's coming up on the horizon. I also wish that the first choice schools were expanded to allow the latitude to be able to apply, or students who are applying for their first choice schools, and schools would be able to accept students with the second choice. As an example, my daughter was attending Golden Middle. When the time came to apply for high school, she felt that she wasn't able or willing to take the chance to apply to another school because her cut score was a little too close. If she would have applied to another school, she would have lost her seat at Golda. So she stuck with her friends and made the decision over the pandemic year. An easy solution would be to allow schools to not only accept their first choices, but allow to the second choice, and realizing that supply and demand might make some of those seats scarce. I want to make sure that these issues are raised as we continue to make progress and make this system better. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran and then Gokul Gandhi.
Thank you, and I just want to reiterate a lot of what the issues that have been raised already. I will say on the success slide, I want to convey that it was a very easy process for me. I was anticipating a lot more, and I literally did it from my couch on my phone. Boom, boom, boom. I think I selected like 5 or 6 schools, right? Took like 2 seconds to do. So thank you for that. I do think bumping the communication up earlier to 6th grade is very important. I know that some of these conversations happen within schools, and some schools may not be having these conversations. So maybe parents are equipped with that knowledge that 7th grade is such a critical year, but some kids may not have had that communication. So I would definitely echo that. I want to also convey, I'm sorry, this is just a litany of concerns.
I asked you to stay, Director O'Halloran. You have every right to speak your mind.
Okay. I'm a school board member, and I could not tell you what my son's cut score was before I submitted and got that paper back stating what his score, sorry, not his cut score, but I could not have told you because the attendance is listed by percentages, and on the report cards, it's just a number. And so if you don't know the denominator, you don't know what the percentage is. So I can't tell you. I was like, yeah, he didn't miss much, so I think he's a 3. I'm not quite sure. Same with the GPA. That is listed as a criteria. We have on his report cards ADs, PRs, and you can say that it's 80% to 100% should be AD or proficient, but like I can't look at his report card and tell you. Actually, I can because he did very well on his scores. But prior to this, I would not have known what his number was. And then to the point around, so I felt pretty good. I thought his number would be qualify for his first choice. But we did hear those horror stories of families who selected because they were told over and over that put all of your eggs in your first choice school, and then they would have qualified for another school had they just known that maybe you want to go to this school, but this school's number is this generally. Maybe this would be a better selection, because you're essentially asking families to be in the driver's seat and you're not giving them all of the information. Like, you haven't given them the manual to operate the system. And one other thing. I did in the presentation, I believe the numbers for King were 5 and Audubon were 4, but I think in the letters that went out to families, they were switched. So I don't know if the presentation was a mismatch between what ended up going out to families. And yeah, I would also say with the, my other concern around the standardized test scores, when I asked the counselor, the number, like, was this within MPS? Like, are their scores compared against MPS students, or are they compared against like state level? You know, our counselor wasn't able to convey that to me. And so what I would ask is that you take somebody who just went through this process and just sit down with them, and they can tell you every single thing, that every question that they had. And I will be your guinea pig. I can rally my other 8th grade parents who went through that same thing, because it feels absolutely absurd that I am on a school board making policy decisions and I can't even tell you what my kid's score was. And so if I don't know that and I'm very much inside the bubble, then I have concerns about what families who don't come to these meetings every single month are thinking.
Thank you very much.
No questions, sorry.
No, that's all right. Administration, anything you'd like to say?
Thank you. Director O'Halloran, Director Simpson, Director O'Halloran, thank you for the feedback. Some of our recommendations moving forward match exactly with what you're saying, because as we talk to parents, and we talk to a lot of parents, that we want to address these concerns, and the education is paramount. I think the one section that I'd comment on the criteria with the grade point average is we do have a standards-based grading system, but we get applicants from a variety of different schools that all have different grading policies. So on the website, we have to address schools that have GPAs, ones that do percentages, ones that do standards-based grading. So it's being aware. And as you said, a parent may not know which of those applies to them for their particular grading scenario. So, but thank you. We can reach out to get other feedback and appreciate comments.
Thank you. Director Gokul Gandhi.
So a couple things. One is just around our online communication. You guys know that I'm always trying to ask for a better user experience for our website, because it still kind of feels like it's in the 90s, which I understand we have certain limitations. But so this goes to, you know, what can we include online to help people and parents or guardians sort of understand where their child is? Can we have something online that is sort of a projection or a generator of, you know, here's kind of the stuff that you have after your conversation with the guidance counselor or the parents or the administrators at the school, you can plug this in, and at any point in time, you can kind of get an idea of where you are and what you might need to improve upon. So that's one thing. Secondly, I would like to see some more data specifically around the racial, ESL, SPED, and socioeconomic statuses of the change that's happened from last year to this year, or maybe a couple years. And then just a request for some follow-up on this. So would it be possible to sort of have 3 more times coming back in the following ways, and my board directors can kind of help determine that. But I think, 1 coming back with aggregate concerns. So just what have we heard? What are the themes? What are the new things that are rising up after this? Then, coming back with a new plan. So what are the changes we're going to make? And then maybe, immediately or semi-immediately after enrollment, the process, can you come back and tell us and share with us what the response was? So also just a lot of comments and maybe some questions in there. And then one actual question. At the open houses, is this something that you have someone there to discuss with parents? Like, here's what to expect, here's what's coming up, and here's who you call to have these questions answered.
All right, administration.
Director Seamson, Director Gogol Gandhi. In the question, most of what is occurring, and I'll also defer to Mr. Hennessy, is at the schools, they're really selling their schools. There are, because that's where the students are going. Our high schools counselors are generally fairly well-versed in the criteria because they have been using it, et cetera. We do have an event where students come to see all schools. We did that over multiple days to, that they can go and see. But again, that's for them to see the options that are available. The open houses are to go see the high school. That's why we want to increase, as we mentioned, the communication to 6th and 7th grade students and families. That's also why with the score, that we would have that calculated in by the start of the 8th grade year, so we could give that to students. We could also add some of the things that were suggested about how do you calculate your attendance rate, how, looking at the grading, that one's a little bit more difficult because it depends on how many grades you received. And so that varies by student. So trust me, we look at all the variations on a theme for collecting and calculating that data. But we can definitely look some of this data we would have now on the applicants, on the enrollment. This information we would not have until fall when students actually attend. So we can maybe get a little bit of it soon, but most of this data would not be available until the start of next school year.
Director Gokul Gandhi. All right, yeah, I guess I would ask then if most, and or defer to Director Gokul Gandhi, if this fits what she's asking for, then if most of this isn't available until fall, would that be an acceptable time frame to bring these 3? All right, so we'll look forward to hearing from you with a follow-up about parental concerns, new plan, and then some of those post-enrollment responses. All right, thank you. Director Leonard.
And definitely, it's way improved than when I was working in middle school. I have to say that. It definitely is improved from that. I am curious, and this may take till later also, but I would love to have the data on those families who did not receive their choices if they left the district. I would like, if that's possible, we just to get a look at, see what kind of data that really comes up with.
Administration.
Director Seamson, Director Leonard, members of the committee. I was just conferring with Mr. Hennessy. We can, again, we have to wait until they actually see if they leave the district or not.
Right.
And so that would not be available until fall.
No problem.
Great, yeah, that can be certainly incorporated into some of those reports. Any other questions? All right, I just, I guess one of my questions was around the families who didn't receive their first choice or any of their choices? What kind of efforts did we make to help them find a school, help them, see if there were any mistakes made along the way to get them into one of their choices? What kind of efforts did we make as a district?
Director Seamson, members of the committee, I'll start, and then Mr. Hennessy will follow. Anytime a parent called, we looked into their concerns. Most of the times it was explaining the data, explaining process, et cetera. Every once in a while, though, you may have found, I'll give the example of the attendance. A student had a lot of attendances and did the makeup work and actually had record of that being submitted. We worked with the principal, had the attendance adjusted, and that earned them an additional point. We may find that a family finally submits a piece of data that we have. So we work with families all the time, pretty much year-round, but on the process of the actual enrolling a student based on the choices. One of the things I'd like to share too, it was part of the committee's recommendation to honor students' first choices. And so part of that is the transition year is difficult, but a student wanting to come to your building and come to your school, we valued as very, very important. But the students, because there were so many that were interested, the schools filled. They were not denied. The seats were filled before we ever got to those choices. If you look at the numbers, you'll see that the numbers at each of those schools, numbers of applicants were very high. Therefore, that is fairly typical that only first choice is chosen because we wanted to honor first choice rather than only selecting the highest students. We wanted to honor those students who wanted to go to those schools as well. Mr. Hennessy.
Director Seamson. So part of our process is when the letters go out for the applicants who did get their choice, we send out letters for those who did not and provide contacts so that they can reach out so that we can continue to support. We have canvassers that we use year-round, and part of what we do is ask them to reach out to families who, again, whether they're having enrollment concerns or didn't get their choice for the selection, to work with them as much as we can to try to find a school that does fit them. And hopefully, it's something that, provides them the same opportunities that they want their child to have during the selection process. So it's something that we absolutely attempt to work with families as much as we can, which includes, as we move into the summer and getting into August, we have open enrollment at times creates openings in some of the select criteria schools, and based off of wait lists and et cetera, sometimes the families, again, that do not have the opportunity now do get one later in the fall that when those seats open up.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, and I think that, back to that point of all of our neighborhoods having, the jewel school to go to, and I think some of that goes back to our own PR and how we have to speak so much about the different programs that we have at so many of our high schools that aren't, they don't come out on the top of the list, but are just wonderful places to attend, and families just aren't always made aware. So, communication is definitely a key part of all of this process. So thank you very much. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for that report. Looking forward to hearing more about this as we move forward. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 4, which is a report with possible action regarding the 53206 initiative. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, this evening we are prepared to share an update on the work associated with the 53206 initiative. Dr. Carletta Nolan, Regional Superintendent for the Central Region, is here with me to provide an update this evening, and after which we're more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Dr. Nolan.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. I am Dr. Carletta Noland, Regional Superintendent for the Central Region. Tonight's presentation will be around the 53206 initiative, which all of the efforts around this initiative are aligned to the 5 priorities for success. These priorities include increased academic achievement, improving district and school culture, developing our staff, ensuring fiscal responsibility and transparency, and strengthening communication and collaboration. I'm trying to get to the slide. They didn't move it. So the next slide is the 53206 demographics. On this slide, you will see the demographics, student demographics for the makeup of the 8 schools that make up the Promise Partnership schools. Currently, we have approximately 2,013 students enrolled in 53206 schools. 0.2% are English language learners, 24.3% are students with disabilities, 88.3% are economically disadvantaged. You will also notice on this slide that we have the percent of enrollment by ethnicity. We have Black and African Americans at 92.6%, 3.7% Hispanic, 2.3% multiple, 0.6% white, 0.4% Asian, 0.3% African American and Alaskan Native, and 0.10 Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders. Our next slide is the staffing. We know that we have been working very hard to increase our staffing within the 53206 schools, and as such, you will notice that there is an increase since our last presentation in February, where we had a fill rate of 92% with 12 vacancies, and we're up 1% from 92 to 93% with only 10 certificated vacancies. We also offer a stay incentive to those who work in the 53206 schools who are newly hired. And as we did not have a change in the number of stay agreements that were signed. In February, we had 7, and we currently, that number remains the same. As I continue the presentation, we'll talk about highlight some of the activities since our last presentation in February. We'll speak to our Lights Are On, which took place on April 19th at Andrew S. Douglas Middle School. And we will also highlight BRICE, which stands for Building Resiliency in Classroom Education, and then talk about some of the upcoming events for the 23-24 school year. Color, Creative Fruits, UW Milwaukee, and the Zoological Society of Milwaukee, just to name a few. In addition, we are really excited because 15 individuals expressed interest in joining MPS as employees. Our next highlight is about BRICE. Earlier in the school year, we noted that we had written a grant to the Appropriations Committee, and it was funded, and we finally began implementation of this grant in January of this year, and it will continue through December of 2023 with 5 of the 8 Promise Partnership schools. So through BRICE, direct services and support will be provided to students struggling with mental health, academic, and or behavioral challenges. This BRICE is patterned after the great things that are happening at the Success Center. As such, this family-centered initiative will address mental health, improves social emotional outcomes, and restores relationships with strategies to help students become resilient learners through a multi-sector partnership. So Bryce is present in 5 of the schools, as I said before. And so far, we have conducted a comprehensive needs assessment that serves as a baseline for students and caregiver needs. And this data has been used to place students in tiers and identify the types of interventions that students and their families will receive. We know that Marquette University has begun to deliver customized classroom, small group, psychoeducational interventions to support and/or foster students' resilience, self-care, and change-making capacity using the PeaceWorks curriculum. We have culturally competent service providers that include individual, family, group, art, and recreational therapy. On the screen, you see that we work with Bloom and then the Mental Health of America, along with our partners at PeaceWorks. As we look ahead, we are really working, the Office of School, the Office of School Administration is working in conjunction with the Office of Academics, the Department of Public Instruction, and CESA 1 in developing a comprehensive professional development framework for teachers and leaders with the emphasis on reading. This plan will have an emphasis on the science of reading, ensuring that leaders, teachers, and students have the knowledge, attitudes, skills, aspirations, and behaviors necessary to ensure high levels of academic achievement in the area of reading. We will continue to make student enrollment and staffing a priority. We will be continuing to collaborate with Student Services and our Human Resources Department with registration and recruitment events occurring throughout the summer. So those of you who are looking for school options for your children, or if you wish to join the MPS family, please look for us at a fair near you, a neighborhood event, or right here at Central Services. So during the upcoming year, we are really excited to expand our mentoring programs for both our boys and girls. Each school will develop a comprehensive plan for their mentoring program based on school-wide data. Our 53206 coordinator will work with schools to identify community partners and employees within MPS departments to serve as potential mentors for our students. We are in the process of developing a blueprint for job shadowing experiences for students, and as such, it is our plan to galvanize support from community partners and departments here at MPS. We are really excited about this opportunity to have our students in grades 5 through 12 be a part of the job shadowing experiences. This concludes our presentation, and I am ready to accept any questions should you have them. Thank you.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran?
Thank you. I just want to reiterate that, the establishing the job shadowing experiences is really important, and I want to put that charge out to the community that a lot of us work in small businesses, nonprofits, the education of our children and taking care of them should be a community lift as well. And I think that sometimes the public asks a lot of us, but I think it's fair to also ask how the public can also support our students as well. And I think that if employers can get a little creative, they can probably come up with ideas on how to give our students a good experience that could be the launching pad to their future career and using their talents wisely. So I just want to put that out there for the community that's listening.
Thank you, Director O'Halloran, for that public service announcement. Director Gokul Gandhi?
I want to continue on the theme of public service announcements. If any state lawmakers are listening to this meeting, this would be a great initiative to invest in, a really productive use of time and taxpayer dollars. So I urge them to look and listen to our meetings and see the great work that's going on in our buildings that's building capacity for our kids and their families.
Thank you very much. I second that. Director Leonard. Right.
And I don't know if you can answer this or not. So that 10%, I mean, only 10 vacancies, 93% fill rate, that seems better than the district overall. Am I mistaken, or I don't know if we know that or not. I'm not sure.
Administration.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, that is something that the team is in the back room looking at that information right now, and I see Adria Maddalini is making her way to the mic, who will share that information with you. So with no further ado, I turn you over to Adria Maddalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Adria.
Good evening, Adria Maddalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Chair Simpson, members of the committee. That is slightly better than overall. I think some of our schools have a vacancy rate around roughly like 10%, I could say. So this is a little bit higher. It really all depends a lot when you're looking at the school district that you're in, the board district, as well as the schools within the district. It varies, but I think those numbers are promising, and we're hoping to improve those as we move forward.
Director Leonard?
Very good. That's great to hear. Trust me. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
There you go. There's the PSA. Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public who wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
All righty. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what is the next item, please?
The next item is item number 5, which is a report with possible action regarding the Climate Justice Curriculum Advisory Committee and the District Sustainability Team. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this evening we are sharing an update on the sustainability, collaboration, and climate justice. Heather Diesel, Specialist of Sustainability Projects, and Kimberly Tellerico Wolf, Climate Justice Coach, is with us to present the presentation. And between the three of us, after which we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Also would like to announce that Sean Kane, Director of Facilities and Maintenance, is also here on behalf of this item as well. Take it away, Heather.
Thank you, Superintendent Posley. Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Heather Dietzel, Sustainability Project Specialist. Members of the District Sustainability Team, Curriculum Team, and local nonprofit partner Reflow attended the Green Schools cohort convening in San Francisco, California last week. The Children in Nature Network sponsored the Milwaukee team and 10 other cities that we've been working with over the past 2 years. Several veteran Green Schoolyard programs were guest speakers, including Grand Rapids, Michigan, Oakland, California, and Austin, Texas. One especially impactful event was the tour of the Oakland Unified's District Nutrition Services Center, where they centrally prepare traditional school lunches, as well as have an extensive gardening operation. They host field trips at this center where students can plant, harvest, cook, and taste the food that they grow. Oakland generously provided their Living Schoolyard technical documents that include design criteria, standard details, maintenance and stewardship procedures, which will be a great advantage to our team as we continue developing our own standards. Funding was a prevalent topic throughout the entire convening. Many of the cities mentioned the Trust for Public Land as a key funding source who we have yet to work with. We were able to meet key members of the Trust for Public Land team, and our team has already reached out and set up collaboration discussions since we've returned, and we have hopes for a good partnership with the Trust for Public Land. On the funding topic, Milwaukee was selected from all the city teams to present our Green Schoolyards model in the funding model educational breakout session. Partly because MPS leads the 11-city cohort in total number of green schoolyards with 21 complete and another 15 in progress, and it was a great chance to showcase MPS on a national scale. I'll now turn it over to Kim Tellerico for the Climate Justice Curriculum update.
Thank you, Superintendent Posley. Thank you, Heather. Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Kimberly Tellerico, Climate Justice Instructional Coach. Climate Justice has begun work to curate climate change resources for K-12 students. Excuse me. We are currently working alongside the Medical College of Wisconsin to create standards-based lesson resources that teachers can use, and they can use those to implement into already existing curriculum. We curated an electronic book list for the MPS online book app Sora, where students in all grades can access Sora through their Clever accounts and now have access to over 75 books about environmental literacy, sustainability practices, and climate change. We highlighted these books for students as a featured collection during the month of April for Earth Day. These ebooks and audiobooks will continue to be accessible as a collection that students and staff can reference. Climate Justice is also sharing urban agriculture curriculum across the district. Specifically, there are 32 MPS schools across all regions that have curriculum to help students grow not only urban agriculture skills and knowledge, but also fresh organic produce. At these schools, there are currently 71 vertical farming units. These farms provide fresh produce to students and families. With growing at full implementation and at full capacity, the social impact of these farming units means that 923 harvests a year are possible with a yield of over 170,000 servings. The environmental impact from these units means a savings of over 34,000 equivalent square feet of cropland and over 800,000 gallons of water conserved compared to traditional agriculture, and over 14,000 pounds of food waste is now saved. All this being done while teaching students about best practices and conservation efforts in vertical farming. We've also partnered with the Department of Natural Resources and MPS art integration teachers to produce an art integration project. At 3 school sites where we will be installing pollinator gardens, we provided professional development to staff, supplied a variety of resources, and implemented lesson plans on the importance of pollinators in Wisconsin, specifically focused on bees. Students in all 3 schools learned about the importance of bees and submitted sketches of insects. We compiled these sketches from kindergartners through 8th graders into an art installation at Havenwood State Forest entitled Please Be Kind to Pollinators. This massive 3D art installation contains over 600 student sketches of bees, along with a narrative about how students learned about bees and why they are important to our food and plant production in Wisconsin. This installation is available for public viewing and student field trips through the months of May and June. That concludes our reports. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for that very hopeful report. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Oh, it's a tie. Director Gokul Gandhi.
My PSA was better, so I'm going to go first. I'm just kidding. You had a great PSA. Obviously, you kind of told us where we rank in terms of green space, but in terms of just general climate integration into curriculum and also extracurricular, where do you feel after going to this conference and consortium we land sort of nationally, and who is, the gold standard, and how close are we to that?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, Director Gokul Gandhi, Heather Dietzel, Sustainability Project Specialist. I can speak to the facilities-related end of that question, and there are only 11 cities in our cohort, so among those 11 cities, we're definitely seen as a leader. We are sought out after every session and asked many questions and invited to share our story most often. But that's why it was great to also have the veteran cities there, like Grand Rapids, Michigan, to tell us about their progress. And even those cities are coming back to talk to us about what we're doing here in Milwaukee. So generally very positive. I think that one of the most interesting things that I learned is that every city has a different reason for getting into the Green Schoolyards game. And it's very geographical and it's community-based. So here in Milwaukee, we take it for granted that we're a Great Lakes state, so we know we need to protect Lake Michigan, and it's ingrained into our curriculum and our facilities work. Whereas San Francisco, the schoolyard we saw there, that their main motivation was to get kids in contact with nature. So they were carving out sections of their schoolyards to get kids touching rocks and climbing as opposed to climbing on play structures. So that was what their emphasis was. And then in Oakland, theirs was access to fresh food. So their students, they say, are experiencing food deserts and they don't have access, so they want them to learn how to grow their own food. So as far as where we rank among those, we've been very lucky to work with the Children in Nature Network, and they're pointing to Philadelphia as a model for our Green Revolving Fund work. So it's kind of like you pick which city and you take what they're advanced in and you share it, and then they're relying on us for those same things. So I know we're going to be looking to Chicago as a model because they're just doing things on a bigger scale than we are. So we rank well, and there's plenty of people to learn from.
Any follow-up? No? All right, Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I attended the Burdick SEC meeting on Tuesday night, and I just wanted to share that the team there is really excited about the urban agriculture. And one thing that I love as a board member hearing about that work was Mr. Kubasek saying, you know, collaborating and learning from like River Trails and Vincent and creating cross-city connections in such a highly segregated city and county. I think it's really great when we can see our young kids coming together around really important things like, you know, how to build a healthy, sustainable system for food. And I know that they were very excited about the potential for one of those vertical farms and how to build that curriculum around that. So I just wanted to convey that sometimes we talk on this stage in kind of abstract, but like at the school level, I know that our students and our staff and our families are really excited about this work as well. So thank you for everything that you all are doing.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Madam Secretary, do any members of the public wish to make comments?
Here we have one individual on the virtual platform ready to provide comments. Sheila Tompkins, please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony. Sheila Tompkins. I just want to give a little bit of time, just in case if there's a delay in connecting. I'm sorry.
No, she was just wondering if I had a story. Director Gokul Gandhi wondered if I had a story to share. I do not, I'm sorry to say.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we have been able to confirm that Sheila Tompkins is no longer on the platform.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if Sheila Tompkins is listening, I would suggest that you email your testimony to Office of Board Governance, and we would be happy to read it. Madam Secretary, I'm sorry, I'm turning the page and rushing the gun. Thank you very much for that report. I really appreciate, we all really appreciate hearing about the wonderful work that you're doing that is so impactful in our schools, our students, and our community. So thank you very much. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda, and before we adjourn, Director Carr did call the office earlier to ask to be excused from tonight's meeting. I didn't see it until after the meeting.
Thank you. And it is Teacher Appreciation Week, so I'd like to just, on behalf of this committee, thank our teachers who are working in our schools for the amazing work that you do each and every day with our students. It is important and impactful, and obviously it's the heart of our district, so thank you very much for the work that you're doing. Hope you all are able to have a little bit of fun this weekend. There being no further business before this committee, this meeting is adjourned.
As opposed to like weekday fun.